movie where there was a tsunami and then 50-foot waves sweep everyone away. And so I looked outside and they're at least 4 or 5 feet tall. But I mean, that's...
Okay.
There is a volcano in the ocean.
Yeah, we
Oh my God.
live in an area where there are signs up, tsunami escape route.
You're on the 17th floor, aren't you?
No, we're not that high, but I so much am sorry that I don't have a car so I could get into the car, escape the area, and then call the kids and say, we escaped the tsunami.
Wait, how about getting a driver and not even have a background check?
Yeah. So anyway.
It's even here, Stanley, it's even in Arizona. The wind is awful this morning.
Seriously.
Really bad. I'm looking at palm trees going in every direction out my window.
Oh, baby, I hope you're okay.
I thought in Arizona all the
here
trees would only go to the right, but that's okay. Baruch atah
Asher Kedishanu, Mitzvotah, Mitzivanu, Torah.
It is so great to see everybody this morning. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Today we have a bunch of things going on. First of all, this is Shabbat Shira. Shabbat Shira, the Sabbath of song. And who among us, like Donna, would want to explain? Donna, what is Shabbat Shira?
It's a song when we sing.
Wait, Donna Shapiro. I'm sorry, please.
I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming it's the Shabbat that we read about the song at the sea, Miriam.
Yes. So in this Sedra, which is the Sedra of Beshalach, which begins, we're going to be Exodus chapter 16, verse 1 and following in the Plout 443 in the WRJ 394. We're not reading Shabbat Shira this morning because we've done that and we move on, even though we'd like to, continue the process. Shabbat Shira occurs every year when we read what is called Shirat Hayam, Shirat Hayam, the song of the sea. And it begins, Az Yashir Moshe B'nai Israel Tashira Hazot, Shira Ladonai Ki Goga. Yes, I did memorize it, but I'm only showing off briefly. When you read it year after year, 50 years in a row in shul, after a while, you get to know it. You really do. In any event, so the Song of the Sea is read, and that's a very special time. It's a special time for celebration. It's a special time for all kinds of good stuff. One of the rabbis in commentaries stated this: no creature ever uttered a more beautiful song to God than this one. That's very nice. Maybe
It's precious. It's holy.
Wait, please don't interrupt like that, okay?
Yes, Rabbi.
Thanks.
Sorry, Rabbi.
No, I have short-term memory loss. You do that, and I'm going to think I'm ordering at Gelson's, and I have no idea.
All right, Rabbi, I love you. Sorry.
So can't do that. So the Song of the Sea is not just read Shabbat morning. The Song of the Sea is read every single day in services. We read Az Yashir ending up with the Micha Mocha every single day. So this isn't just a one-off. This is that also helped me memorize it. This is a very beautiful thing. And though we're not going to do that today, the theology and the theological problems in this are terrific. There are many. It is considered to be, maybe Efsher, the oldest piece of writing in the Torah. First of all, we know that poetry is older than prose. And secondly, we find in the language of the Shir a lot of ancient verb forms, word forms. And we're able really to say quite successfully, this is one of the original writings that were eventually woven together to make with the Torah that we have today. So it's really great. This is Shabbat Shira. We do it. Now, I have been emphasizing this to absolutely no effect around the country. We have an obligation to feed birds on this week. It is a real thing. It's all through the Gemara. You got to feed birds when you read Shira Tayam. And some of you may ask, well, maybe none of you are going to ask.
Why?
Oh, thank you very much. So the reason is, according to the tradition, that as the Israelites were crossing through the Reed Sea and getting ready to sing Mi Chamocha and all that good stuff, the birds in the heavens and all of nature responded to our freedom. The birds sang their songs and meshed their songs with ours.
I love that.
Therefore, my friends, during this week, it is a mitzvah not counted in the 613 to feed the birds. So if you please, in order that we can have a traditionally observant Chevra Torah, make certain that during the week you put out some caviar for the birds. That's very important. Monday, this is Shabbat Shira. Monday is two events. What are the two events?
Tu B'Shvat.
It's Tu B'Shvat and
Martin Luther King's.
Martin Luther King weekend. And one of my favorite things when we have a big service is we sing Micha Mocha to the tune of We Shall Overcome. I will not attempt to do it. It's beautiful, but if I would sing it, it would be revolting. So we sing Micha Mocha. We have Martin Luther King. Is that something which Jews ought to be aware of? That's not even a question, okay? Sukasa, question.
I was just going to say that Cantor Gurney last night at services did sing Micha Mocha to the tune of We Shall Overcome. And it was a beautiful service. And if you did not see it, I recommend tuning in.
Okay, now see that Sue, Risa, my wife, attended that service. She loved it. She told me about Rabbi Nana's sermon, and she was extremely happy with that. So I have to excuse myself. Last night, I was in Merced, California, virtually, with my rabbinic mentee, and I was supervising his conducting of the service. So I'm sitting there watching him, taking notes, not really worshiping because that's what I'm doing. And Risa thoroughly loved the service. And you're totally right. Thoroughly loved. She worships Don anyway. So that's, that's a good thing. Yes, I felt guilty. Why did I feel guilty? I had to apologize. Anyway, it's good.
Don't apologize for nothing.
Okay. Now, a question comes up always every time that we encounter Martin Luther King Day. People refer to him, some people do, as a prophet. Prophet. How do you respond to that? A personal comment. How do you respond to that? There's no right answer. It's a question. It's an ask for a reaction. Do you regard, can we regard, is it right to regard, is it wrong to regard Martin Luther King as a prophet?
As the
Please
Jewish,
raise your hand, Effie. Thank you.
It all depends upon how your definition of a prophet is.
I'm asking Effie.
Yeah, it all depends upon, well,
Well, what about Effie? Effie,
Oh.
do you?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Any other responses? Fern? Fern, yeah,
May I, Rabbi?
Go ahead.
please.
Thank you, darling.
Fern,
And in
Donna,
light of,
Donna,
in light of-
please, with respect, I asked Fern to speak.
It's okay. Let her go and then I'll go.
no, darling, you go first.
Okay. I just wanted to say that similarly to Effie, but we come at the Torah from very different places. I see a lot of the Torah as metaphor. And to the extent that we use the expression prophet, for me, it's a metaphor for somebody who is wise, who sees a path in the future that is a wise path. And to that extent, I see Martin Luther King certainly as someone, just as Gandhi or Dalai Lama.
Yes, love.
Okay, and did you end with opera or you just said Dalai Lama? Yeah.
I
Dalai-
don't have anything else to
Okay,
say.
Donna, please, yes, what would you like to say?
She said it all.
What would you like to say, Donna? Donna? Lady Joan, Lady Donna? Nothing, okay. Jim Ruxin, please ask Hannah to mute all. Okay, all right, except when we speak. Would someone like to try to offer me a definition of what a prophet is, as you understand it? Okay, Panina? No, not yet. You're, I don't know, you're muted there.
Okay, okay now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, well, it was a person who actually, at the time of the biblical prophets, had the role of conveying a message to the people that their own behavior are going to promote whatever events that's going to happen to them. And it showed up true because when Judea was divided, or Israel was divided, Yehuda and Israel, this is when the other nations took over and
Okay.
won wars against them. So in other words, they were warning the people to behave
In the name of God, in the
Correct.
name of God, warning the people. Okay, I see, wait a second, oh, there are a whole bunch of hands up here now, which is great. I see Merle, I see Sue. Merle, please.
I'm thinking that in the world that I grew up in, a prophet can foresee that. I don't want to say foresees the future, but gives you advice out of what the future might be and how to react to it and what we can do if it's troubled times.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Of course it makes sense. We're struggling to define it. Thank you. Sue.
I think that Martin Luther King said, I can see the mountaintop. I may not get there. So I think that kind of, I think a modern prophet would be a slightly different definition from a biblical prophet. The biblical prophets seem to say, you guys aren't doing anything right. Terrible things are going to happen. If you amend your ways, God will bring goodness to you. So that's how I see most of the prophets but I think that Martin Luther King was saying, this is where we're going to go. I may not get there, but this is the path that we need to be on, and we will get there.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're just going to take another minute or two and then get directly into the text. But to me, it's just fascinating. Let's just see. Looking for those yellow hands. I think we're clear.
The actual Hebrew word means things to come.
I'm sorry, means what?
Things to come, navo.
No,
What's
No,
going to come from the word to come?
I don't
Bam,
think
ba, lavo.
no. Penina, with all due respect, you're the Israeli. I'm technically yes, but not. No, that's not the root for Navi.
Okay.
That's not the root.
Okay.
So it has to do with flowing and other kinds of stuff. So it's a different root.
Okay.
The whole question about prophecy is fascinating, and you read about it. Heschel wrote that prophecy continued into the Middle Ages. A great biblical scholar and someone whom Tamara feels very close to, Frederick Greenspan. Did I say that correctly, that you're close with him? Yes. Said there's no prophecy after Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Prophecy ended. Other scholars say, well, it says prophecy departed from Israel. It didn't end. So it's kind of like a way to wedge the door open. Prophecy may have departed, but anything that departs, Steve Miller, could come back. A quick response. I want to get to the text. Yes.
It was actually Mona.
I was just going to say that I think of prophets as having tremendous moral authority, great insight into human behavior and levels of moral and ethical behavior. And they also have some kind of direct channel that promotes this insight. They're in communication with God, or such great receptors of God's message that it informs not only their message, but their whole being. They're kind of living on multiple planes. They, talk to people and try to put things in terms that people can understand, but they're infused with another level of consciousness.
I am very frustrated, Mona. Why don't you start writing about this? Okay? Why don't you? That was
He is so intelligent.
well stated. Tamara, please. And then Ray, and then Lady Donna.
Yeah, actually, as I remember what Fred Greenspan pointed out, that the tradition says prophecy ended, but he goes on to show Jewish texts that continue to acknowledge prophets even beyond that. So prophecy really did not end, which allows people like me to think of Heschel as a prophet in our own time when he was alive, precisely because of the definition that Mona you just gave, and Martin Luther King fits as well as a person who is in touch with something beyond our ordinary reality and can envision a potential towards which we can strive.
Okay, Lady Donna, please, and we're going to have, and we'll go to Ray, but we're going to need short comments now because I want to get to the text.
Thank you, Rabbi. Short but sweet. I think the prophetic is through all of our leaders in the future, the Torah, that tell us what we are to hear. And I'm going to let you speak because I'm done.
Thank you, Ray.
I think prophets are intermediaries to a divine being. And I would characterize Martin Luther King more as an advocate rather than a prophet.
Okay, and okay, Brad, and then we're out of this round.
Well, Rabbi, I was just trying in my own mind to distinguish a prophet from a seer. Are they the same thing? Are they different? I mean, in English, the word prophet is related to prophecy, prophesize, to somehow see the future. But if you think about Tiresias in the Oedipus story, as opposed to what Mona was saying a minute ago, he didn't speak clearly. He spoke very ambiguously. He spoke in riddles. And certainly Martin Luther King did speak very, very clearly to the people. And I think that's maybe a distinction between the prophets of old and the prophets of today.
Okay, I am actually a little bit hurt by the fact that not one of you suggested that I could be among the prophets, but okay, we'll let that slide for today. Brad, just to make a slight emendation, the prophets are vastly different than seers. They are really different, I don't want to, activities. The prophets, as Mona, others have pointed out, bring a severe message from God, judging, warning, and connecting behavior with outcomes. Seers don't have that connection. They, they look to the future and, grease my palm, I'll tell you the future. They're it's a lesser kind of a thing. This has been great.
You didn't answer the question, Rabbi.
Pardon?
You didn't answer your own question.
Are you challenging me? What a surprise. What a surprise.
Man.
I am perfectly willing to say that prophecy continues. In my mind, those who stand and deliver a moral message and connect human behavior with inevitable outcomes deserve consideration to be prophets. And therefore, for me, Heschel, totally. Martin Luther King, totally. By the way, if you say to me, wait a second, some of these guys were flawed and they had moral issues and so forth like that, and I would say there is no indication at all that prophets are selected because they are morally correct, perfect human beings. They are flawed. They have all kinds of issues. On the other hand, the message that they give, which Jeremiah says burns in his intestines, that he can't not deliver, is a message which didn't change much behavior in their own day and speaks to us directly today. Wow, that's what the prophet,
wow, I love it.
That's what the prophet's words can do.
You are spot on, Rabbi.
So I am willing to do that. And I'm going to throw in and move on that one of the problems with prophecy continuing, according to the rabbis, is that if we say prophecy continues, we are opening the door to Mohammed, to Jesus, and to a variety of other individuals down through history. And there were those who wanted to shut down prophecy because keeping it open increases challenges to the centrality of the Jewish message. And beyond that, when the time came that Jews were scattered all across the world, we actually had to cut off direct linkage with God speaking in order to hold a worldwide community together when there is no temple, no centrality of Jerusalem. They're physically and spiritually scattered across the world. Having an open door to ongoing revelation or the message from God is very, very problematic. I saw this. Prophets do not only warn and chastise, but they also have a vision of who we can be and hope that we can move closer to it, swords into plowshares and so forth. I forget, Tamara, was it Joel who turned around, who reversed swords into plowshares?
Joel reverses it, but both Micah and Isaiah affirm it.
I was going to say that too. Okay, thank you. Now, whoa, okay. Wow, here we are. Chapter 6, thank you. Chapter 16, verse 1. Chapter 16, verse 1 in the book of Exodus. And we're 443 in the Plout. And it starts off simple enough. We have now crossed the sea. We have now sung to God. We even had the first major rebellion against Moses and God. And I love that. The people cry out for water, and they act in a bitter kind of a way, and they encounter water, marah, but they couldn't drink the water of marah because it was bitter. And then Moses, I like the way one of the editors treats this.
Oh, come on.
Moses
Don't
displayed a desert trick and threw a piece of wood into the bitter water, and it came out sweet. Okay, whatever happened, the water was there, but God bless our ancestors. They finished singing, "Who is like you, God, among the mighty?" And boom, they revolted and didn't have that. And I forgot because I got excited. Can we quickly do, Jim, the next thing up? You're not audible, which is
Yeah,
all.
sorry to interrupt, but thank you. Tonight is The Lives of Others in the film discussion group. It's a fascinating story of character and how a cold-hearted East German Stasi agent who's assigned to surveil a liberal group of writers and playwrights, through the process of overhearing and becoming intimate with their lives, decides to see how they are the oppressed class and sympathizes with them and protects them from the East German government in the Cold War. So it's a fascinating study of how somebody who starts out to be evil becomes a whole complete person through the process of interacting with somebody else. Very well done, great taut thriller, even if Steve Miller didn't like it as much.
I like it.
It's like the way you didn't go from started out being completely evil, went to being good, but came to be a complete whole person. I think that was beautifully expressed. Cindy, Tu B'Shvat.
Tu B'Shvat, this Thursday, 5 p.m., Sisterhood will have a happy hour Zoom, which won't be canceled because of COVID. Yay. On ethical wills, we have a great speaker from WRJ coming, and just an FYI, Rabbi Leader is writing a book on ethical wills. So hopefully he'll do a follow-up eventually. So we'll get two different perspectives, and it's just a take on, instead of fruit trees, we're looking at family trees. So hopefully you can join us. It's open.
That's great. By the way, that book is already published.
We said it's coming out in June.
Yeah. I mean, it's already at the printer and that kind of stuff. Wonderful. That's going to be another great program, and the attendance has been
we're over 80 at this point, including Effie.
I'm going to let that go. Okay. So that's fine, but your programs have been drawing lots of people, and that's
I love it.
That's extraordinary. I would like to mention that on January 19th, 12 to 1 o'clock will be my first current events thing. And the risk that Wilshire Boulevard Temple is taking is that we are going to have kind of an open mic. No one will be censored or controlled in terms of the attitudes they express. We only require civility, and I will use my massive powers if there is incivility, but we're going to raise items of current concern to Jews in Israel and in the United States. I am going to be happily taking positions. Howard, you got to be there so you can challenge me on every possible interpretation I offer. And we're going to do this for an hour every other week. I hope it'll be fun. I hope
it sounds like it.
And I hope that we don't injure each other. Okay, so those are my announcements. And just like to ask if there is anything going on in your lives which you would like to share with us before we move forward.
I'm auditioning, Rabbi, in my music to bring more peace.
Okay, so we are now going to continue. Look, 16:1. So after they had all these things going on, they're setting out from Elim. The whole Israelite community came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after the departure from the land of Egypt. First of all, the Hebrew word for China today is Sin, spelled the same way. So every time I see this, oh, they went to China and they got, takeout food. No, but the wilderness is called Sin. I have hiked the wilderness called Sin, spelled Z-I-N. Sin, Sadi. And every time I encounter this passage, I get confused.
Yeah.
Sin is not in the Negev. Sin is in the Negev, and that's a nice place to hike. The wilderness of Sin. People don't really know the meaning of the word. Some of the scholars say, oh, it's derived from the same root as Sinai. It's something near Sinai. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Why emphasize on the 15th day of the second month after their departure? The people began grumbling. We should have died in, Egypt. Why did you bring us out here? We're hungry. Why?
First day of the second month.
Why did they emphasize the date? Because I never ask a question to which I do not know something like an answer. That's how much food they brought out with them from Egypt. You should know that they grabbed food wherever they could. They had the dough baking on their shoulders. They took whatever they could steal for borrow reparations from the Egyptians, whatever they did. They gathered up that food. They headed into the desert. The food lasted to the 15th day of the second month after their departure. 6 weeks. 6 weeks for food. That means that their provisions were ended. And what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? What are they going to get instead of the food, the real food, if you will? How are they going to survive? Effie? Oh, you're
Manna.
Manna. Okay. And we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about manna, and I hope you won't spread this around, but I don't have a clue as to what manna is. There are all kinds of explanations. Is it a kind of a fungus that grows on plants? Is it something that is exuded from the cactus and they gathered it up? There are many answers. And unless anyone has a definitive answer, I have to admit to you, it is a food provided by God. I don't know how to go beyond that point. It is manna. And of course, it enters the world vocabulary, manna from heaven. It's like a gift from God, the food that they're going to eat. The rabbis counted up, in case you are interested, there were 61 full meals that the people were able to eat with the food that they brought out of Egypt until they ran out of food. Okay, so they had 61 meals. There was, if you can believe this, no Instacart. They could not get delivery into the desert, and therefore they were in trouble. The rabbis needed to know what day of the week the manna first appeared. Why? Why were they so concerned that they were? What day of the week the manna first appeared? Folks, They didn't want it to be Shabbos. They had to make sure that God didn't deliver the first order of manna on Shabbos, because on Shabbos, manna was not ever to be delivered. So the rabbis, Ibn Ezra was very concerned about that. By the way, Ramban, Nachmanides, had my problem. He wrote about, folks, don't confuse the wilderness of sin with the wilderness of sin. Those are two different places. So Nachmanides and I shared that concern, and Ibn Ezra was worried it shouldn't be Shabbos. Let's see what's going on here. Setting out from Elim, they came to the wilderness of Sin on the 15th day, second month after their departure. In the wilderness, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the hand of the Eternal, the land of Egypt, we sat by the flesh pots when we ate our fill of bread, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to starve this whole congregation to death. Against whom did the people complain? Against Moses and Aaron. Steve.
I wanted to go back to the day. Don't we know for certain that it was not Shabbat? Because as I recall, wasn't it on Friday a double portion of manna fell so that they would have food for Shabbat without having to gather it?
We're going to be getting to that. That's not yet in the text. Okay? That's a little bit further on, and we'll talk about what the double portion means. But that wouldn't give us the date. That wouldn't give us the date. And there's a little bit of confusion eternally as to what the actual departure, 15th of Nisan, the actual departure was from Egypt. So they had to work it through. They had confusion. I'm sorry. They complained against Moses and Aaron. Why? Why? Why didn't they complain against God? Why did they hate God? What did you do? They raised up a rebellion against Moses and Aaron. Why? Why? Effie.
Because they could see Moses and Aaron. They can't see God. There's something tangible about Moses and Aaron.
Okay. I mean, they're right in front of them. Good. That's great. Hi, Eric. Good to see you. But Moses and Aaron were the ones who physically led them out of Egypt. What is fascinating to me about this section is that it's Moses and Aaron, not just Moses. They're giving to Aaron a kind of a parallel status in terms of who led them out of Egypt. Moses and Aaron, you did this. That's fascinating to me. Merle.
They were so uncertain about everything.
Excuse me, Merle.
They were so uncertain about what was going on that they were going to go after whoever was visible to them.
Okay, Merle, again, they were so, say it again, please.
They were so uncertain about what was going to happen to them that and I think it was Effie that said they couldn't be seen, that God couldn't be seen. They were going to go after whoever they could because in their minds, you're leading this, so this is your fault.
Perfect. Please, Steve, Mona.
I just wanted to ask what flesh pots means. I mean, I
we're going to get there. It's in my notes. It actually is. It's in my notes. Good. Thank you. Okay. So they murmured, they attacked, grumbled against Moses and Aaron. For me, the takeaway here, interesting. Aaron is given status as one who brought them out of Egypt. Interesting. Brad.
Well, Rabbi, previously we learned that God decided that rather than taking the short way through Canaan because of war that was going on there, he said, well, the route should be the long route. Obviously God did not understand the slave mentality and how the people would react. So not only do we have God's mistake in sending them the long way, but we have the Israelites' mistake in blaming Aaron and Moses instead of God. So it's a comedy of errors.
I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a tsunami and you're attacking God, okay? you really think that's a good thing? Okay, thank you. Ray, Carrie?
They still doubt the existence of God when they blame Aaron and Moses. Otherwise, they would blame God. They still question God's existence.
That's good. That's good. I'm looking there. I know. Oh, Donna, please. Hi, Donna.
Hi. Not to be, cynical or whatever, but I think part of the reason that Aaron and Moses are equated in this passage is because that was the author, whoever wrote that was probably the priestly author who was big into Aaron. So Aaron gets equal billing with Moses. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Steve.
Even if they did believe in God, I don't think yet they had any notion that they could communicate with God. The only way God enters the world is through Moses. So if you want to complain against God, where else are you going to go? They have no connection personally to God yet.
I think that's a really good insight. If they're going to yell, they don't have a channel through which they can yell, except to Moses and Aaron. And yeah, I think that's fun. That's fascinating. I want to move on. Are we okay? Okay. They murmured, Aaron, Moses. This next line is fascinating. Israelites said to them, to Moses and Aaron, if only we had died by God's hand in Egypt when we sat by the flesh pots, when we ate our fill of bread. You brought us out here to starve to death. And by the way, thank you. Folks, is that at all possibly true? Do you have an image, Cecil B. DeMille, an image of the Israelites sitting around, eating, relaxing? What do they have here? Flesh pots full of bread. And by the way, when it says bread, typically within the biblical context, lechem, which is a very important word, it is the root of milchama, right? The same word, lechem, bread, is the root of the word for war. Lechem, milchama, they're related. It makes great sense. But lechem means more than bread in the biblical text. Lechem is food. Food. It's not just literal bread. So the people said, we had food. What about the Seer habasar, the flesh pot? What is a flesh pot? All right, Donna, I'll let you go, but I have my own funny response. But please go ahead. What do you think it is, Donna?
I assume it's like a stew or something, like a big pot where you have a stew with some sort of flesh in it.
Okay, Eric? Eric, are you there? You have your hand up?
They were, all they did was have to do their jobs and they get the food and everything. There was no independent thought about them. So, you know what? Because when I got kicked out of my mother's house, I had to learn to survive on my own so that they could be able to survive on their own without having to worry about the master giving them food and everything like that. It's like slave mentality, like I would have loved to stay in my mother's womb and be comfortable all my life, but no, I had to get birth. My mother birthed me, and I had to learn to work and survive on my own until the time I needed a trustee to take care of my finances and my health when I grow older.
Yes, yes, there certainly is a part of that when the Israelites have to pull themselves together. Okay, Penina, and then we're going to move forward.
It's supposed to show plenty. Sira Basar, that's a time where they have everything that they needed as far as food. It showed satisfaction of plenty, of having a lot. The same way as lechem is milchama, Sira Basar, it's like the pot of plenty, even though it means meat.
But
it's something that fulfilled your flesh, your own flesh.
Isn't it also, maybe I'm wrong, but my impression when I hear the expression in modern life use flesh pots, it's negative, isn't it? Flesh pots.
Today, because people are vegetarian, it might be, but it wasn't in those days.
No, I'm agreeing. I'm saying, Donna.
I always associate it with like prostitution or something. It's like all the flesh pots of whatever, but that must be wrong.
No, I don't know. That would make sitting by the flesh pots of Egypt very attractive.
Maybe so. I don't know.
Okay, but according to the commentaries, apparently, Seer HaBasar is like a big wok. It's a big, that's all it means. And the odds of it being meat, slim. The odds are that the Seer HaBasar, the flesh they're talking about, was probably fish. But I'm asking here, was this true?
We are also called Basar Vadam. Ourselves, we are called Basar Vadam, flesh and blood.
Flesh. So is it true that the Israelites were sitting in Egypt next to big pots filled with fresh cooked meat of some sort and abundant lechem, food of all kinds? Merle?
If they're complaining, one sentence before this, that now they've run out of food and they have manna, whatever manna is, all of a sudden they're eating this big stew. Where did all this come from? It makes no sense.
The flesh parts were in Egypt. They're
okay.
They're remembering back in Egypt that I just don't have this picture of the slaves coming back from a hard day building Pitom and Ramses and all the great storehouses of Egypt. Honey, what's on? Oh, we have this big pot of fresh meat and this whole set of hors d'oeuvres. Here's a nice Merlot. Sit down. We're going to be fine. I don't feel that. And so what are the Israelites doing when they say, oh, we sat by the flesh pots of Egypt? Please, Donna.
They're romanticizing the past, because last I checked, they were slaves. They were probably working really hard. They probably didn't have that much to eat. So we have a tendency to do that. Like, oh, it was so great back then. And you forget about all the bad stuff.
Someone once, just between you and me again, Donna, someone once said, good old days, right? What is the abbreviation? GOD. They worship the good old days. When people say, oh, things are so rotten now, it was so much better in the Eisenhower years. It was quiet. There was no social unrest. People were just good and calm. And then you think, were these good old days really that good? Well, not if you were an African American, not if you were a woman, not if you're a Jew, not if you're Catholic. minor problems. Other than that, people were pretty happy. So, oh boy, we should, I mean, there are political forces that want us to return to the good old days. And no, Larry.
This also seems a bit relative. I mean, when you're starving, having subsistence amount of food seems like a lot of food.
That's fair. That's fair. And by the way, you know, they have, you know this, all these experiments with food deprivation, and people start talking about, thinking about, obsessing about food. They you know, when you start limiting, it's like Yom Kippur afternoon. It's yeah, the focus is there. Sue.
Well, I think when they were slaves, they, even if they had meager food, they knew they were going to get food. Whereas once they were on their own, they had individual responsibility for getting the food, or community getting the food. It wasn't provided for them.
Excellent. And in a way, that's what Eric said as well. There's something very comforting about having the food always there. And then when you grow up, that's not the way it is. It's not the way it is. I had to pick up something, and please don't tell my son, I went to a grocery store yesterday. He is absolutely, he's 56, I'm 82, and he's controlling my life. The thought that I would go into a grocery store now is abhorrent to him because of COVID. I went into a grocery store, fully masked, all the stuff. And while I was there, a homeless person was arrested for stealing, shoplifting. And when there is no reliable source of food, things are very challenging. Life is very challenging. And yeah, you can fantasize about what it was like when mom set the table. And by the way, those fantasies may or may not be accurate in terms of what actually was going on. Did you notice whether or not mom ate? There are so many stories about that mom always put the food on the table, and only later did they realize the kids were eating. There wasn't enough for mom. And they didn't even notice that. Okay, Effie? Effie, you're muted. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Yes, I am.
After the Civil War, a lot of slaves went back to the farms and whatnot that they lived in and were slaves under, because they had another place to go, and they felt that, hey, you know, at least here I got a bed, a terrible bed, but I get some food there. And a lot of them went back to their original places.
That's a great connection. Yes. Yeah, that's a great connection. Okay, we're moving forward with this. So the flesh pots, again, as Donna pointed out, and I certainly believe, I always thought it was a nasty, terrible thing. And here it's part of a fantasy recreation. We had our full of bread, and you brought us out here to starve. Okay, we're going to go to verse 4. Oh, we're doing fine. Sue, you have your hand up again? Sue? No, you're not there. The hand is still up. Woo, okay. Eternal One said to Moses, I will rain down bread for you from the sky, and the people shall go out and gather each day that day's portion, that I may thus test them to see whether they will follow my instructions or not. By the way, instructions in the Hebrew, if you look at verse 4, Torati, my Torah. It's good to see how Torah is understood in the Torah. Torati, my Torah, my instruction, the rules that I'm giving. I loved when I looked at, I will rain down bread for you. My first thought was the translator got carried away. Oh, rain down, because it's going to appear. And then I looked in the Hebrew. Hineni mamtir lachem lechem. What does the Hebrew say? Rain. God, the Hebrew text says, God is going to put rain down this lechem min hashamayim. Now remember again, lechem doesn't mean just bread, food from the heavens. I will rain down, and I would rather think that food would be a better translation here. I will rain down bread, food from the sky, and the people go out and gather each day that day's portion, that I may test them. Stop. I'm going to give you food, and they're going to have rules, and the getting of the food is connected to you following the rules. Tell me, if you're sitting in the desert right now, how do you like that message? How do you like the message? What do you think? I'm going to give you food, Israelites. I'm going to rain down food from the heavens to test you, to see if you follow my Torah. What do you think? What kind of a gift is this?
Generally speaking, I don't like it.
I'm sorry?
I don't like it. I wouldn't like it, if somebody was fooling around with me like that and telling me what to do and testing me.
Ray, is that you?
Oh, Howard.
Oh, that's Howard. I'm sorry. Okay, that's Howard.
Sorry.
You would not like it?
I would not like it.
Offensive? It's.
Yeah.
Do you ever notice when you're training a dog and you have food in your hand and you do a word command or a hand command, no, 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 yes, and then the dog will take it? It's like, just give me the damn food. What is this? I've told you this before, but it is a great memory. I had a friend in Israel who had a lab, a golden lab, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beast. And of course, it's in Israel. He would take a treat and put it on the dog's nose and say, "Treif, treif, kosher," and the dog would eat. So what's God doing? I'm going to give you food so that I can test to see if you will follow my commandments. I see Steve, I see Penina, I see let's see, Effie. Okay, Steve.
I don't think it's different than almost anything else in life. You don't get paid if you don't do your job, or you might one day and then not have your job. I mean, everything has its conditions. I mean, what makes you so entitled that everything should be given to you and you should not be required to give anything in return? I think I realize they may not like it or may feel this isn't fair, but lots of people think that, and it doesn't get you very far.
We have great comments. It goes from no hoarding, Kvetch Fest, Pavlov, let's make a deal. I mean, those are great responses to that. There's no free lunch, right? Effie, quickly, I have to do Kaddish. Please, we'll do this.
Okay, when they say bread, I think it means food, because when you say, when you sit down to dinner, you only make a blessing over the bread. You don't make a blessing over each and every item. And bread just means food in general, not necessarily just bread.
Yeah, by the way, if your meal does not contain bread, then you do indeed make blessings over individual things. Okay, did I? Okay, Penina, quickly, and then we'll go into
Okay.
Torah.
He's not only telling them that he's going to give him food, he says he's also going to give them water. Mamtir, that's rain. And to have rain in the desert, that's a pretty big thing. And Israel till today, the question of water is always a very big question there. And all this stuff that they do in the desert to grow things that they found, it has to do with lack of water there. And to say to them that they're going to give them rain and then the food, it's also kind of like a lesson that you need water to grow things, and maybe a lesson of them being farmers in the future. So it was a test to a way of life.
I find it very interesting that Israel is involved with some kind of deals now with Jordan, and it's water.
Exactly.
Water is key in that part of the world. Water is everything.
They are growing things they cover tomatoes with plastic so it will sweat and drip back the water into the plant. So there is all kind of things that they come up with. And it's a big thing when he says, I'm going to give you rain. Mamtir, matar is rain.
It is.
Okay.
Before we do Kaddish, let me just say, happy Shira Tayam, happy Shabbat Shira, happy Tu B'Shvat, and the Sisterhood Tu B'Shvat Seder. Happy movie tonight. And I don't want to say happy, but significant Martin Luther King Day. It's an interesting time. We should be aware of the way our world is whirling and twirling. Those who have passed away during the past month include Ron Berman, Beverly Feinstein, Ken Klenner, Stephen Leventhal, Joyce Austin, Arnold Seidel, Ruth Green Stamler, Sheila Bordeaux-White. Yahrzeits that have occurred during the past week include Irving K. Abramsky, Bertha Adishek, Fanny Ball, Nasser Banayan, Sharon Neufeld-Bell, Anna Bendit, Charles Benjamin, Philip Bennett, Norman Berkowitz, Donald Bernstein, Morton Bernstein, Milton Bick, Evril Bortz, Julius Bransky, John Brewer, Knud Bro, Chester Brown, Brian Burns, Joseph Caden, Morris Clayman, Carol Cohn, Al Cohn, Thomas Combs, Eleanor Complin, Michael Corwin, Jerome Dissner, Joseph Dresser, Howard Dworkin, Benjamin O'Connor, Stell Ellison, Sid Engelman, Erwin Feinstein, Julius Feldstein, Natalie Furman, Barnetta Finkel, Robert Fried, Ruth Friedman, Robert Garber, John Gaylord, Celia Gelman, Maurice Getz, Jay Glaser, Hilda Gluck, Daniel Goldman, Manya Goldman, Walter Goldman, Jacques Gorecki, Abraham Greenfield, Marianne Louise Greenberg, Jacob Heyman, Anne Hamrill, Henry Henningsen, Cecile Barnett Hilfman, Anna Hiller, Oscar Isman, I-E-Z-M-A-N, Eisman, Robert John Ermas, Leland Jackaway, Jerry Jacobson, Bernice Janowski, Sarah Jarris, Gail Johnson, Alan Jonas, Judith Kapor, Louis Katz, Jeanette Paul Keene, Louis Konitz, Carol Beth Korn, Deborah Lee Kovac, Sarah Kraut, Alfred Kaczynski, Jerry Lawrence, Arnold Lorber, Milton Malin, Theodore Mann, John Marion, Audrey Markinson, Doris Michaels, Geraldine Nacht, Hattie Orden, Lillian Pincus, Hinda Porter, Ruth Roppy, Samuel Roddy, Ida Rosenbaum, Regina Ross, Sam Rubin, Eleanor Sattinger, Sharon Schechter, Sally Schlossberg, Tilly Schwab, Stel Schwartz, Verona Seidel, Ann Sharp, Karen Schur, Erwin Schreier, Bennett Soberstein, Sarah Smook, Jeanette Snyder, David Sobel, Barry Solomon, Gerald Stark, Erwin Stein, Susan Hattie Steinsapier, Norman Stern, Barbara Taub, Audrey Traeger, Julio Wall, Maxine Warren, Fern Weber, Nathan Wiseman, Jesse White, Rosalie Witz. To these names, we add the names of all of those who've died through acts of terrorism. We add the names of those who died in defense of the United States of America and the state of Israel. If there are names that have not been spoken, please feel free to speak them aloud now or to speak them in your hearts. And again, I apologize, as I do each week, for names that have been mispronounced or names that have been omitted. We join together in Kaddish. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'alma, Divra, V'yutei, V'yamlich, Malchutei, V'chayechon, V'yumechon, V'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, V'agala, V'zman Kariv, V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach, V'olam Liomei Almayah. Yitbarach, Yitkabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Kodeshah Barichu, La'ela min kol berachata v'shirasha, Tush b'chata v'nechemata, Damiran v'alma v'imru amen. V'hei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, Aleinu v'yachol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'yachol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the families and nations of earth. And let us say amen.
Amen.
We did see the name of Patty LeMan, whose name was inserted by Carrie. Thank you very, very much. I don't want to end, but it does. Love you. Have a wonderful Shabbat, a wonderful Tu B'Shvat, a careful Martin Luther King Day, a wonderful Shira Tayam, and a great week. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Ray, yes, Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, everyone.
So good to be with you. So, so good. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat, Shabbat,
Shabbat.
Shabbat, Shalom.
Oh, don't ask me to sing. No, 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 no. That'll never happen.